And then there was one. And if you've ever seen a horror movie, I mean, hell, if you've ever been afraid before in the entirety of your life, you knew damn well what number one on this countdown was going to be. I mean, the film that we're about to nerd out to has done more for the horror genre than maybe anything we've ever seen before. Friday the 13th is an admitted blatant ripoff of this movie, and look at what that went on to become. And on top of that, think about the simplicity that are the crucial components of this holiday tale. A kitchen knife, a stark white mask, an obsession, and a theme that will live on for far longer than I will ever hope to. 1978's Halloween by the incomparable John Carpenter is the reason that I fell in love with horror movies. It's the reason I love talking about horror movies. It's the reason I enjoy scaring my kids. And it's going to be the reason I pay a lot in therapy bills over the course of their lives for what I've put them through. I went on the most uncomfortable, scary, thrilling ride of my young life the first time I ever watched this movie, and I never once budged from the couch. Let's talk about why 1978's Halloween is the GOAT of all horror classics. Even if this movie had stayed named The Babysitter Murders, which is what they originally planned to call it, we're still talking about an all-timer name of a horror film. It piques your interest and makes you want to find out more about it. And they only changed the title because the murders in this film take place on Halloween, and the filmmakers were stunned to even learn that Halloween was available as a name. Thus, Halloween as a horror mainstay was born, and if you want to get a little controversial, I kind of dig the idea of calling this movie The Babysitter Murders. Now, we don't know, of course, whether or not it would grow into what it became, but under that moniker, it lets it get away from having to be on or around the Halloween holiday. And cards on the table, Halloween is an awesome fucking name, and I'm just thinking out loud here, but in somewhere in that murder multiverse, far off in another dimension, The Babysitter Murders Ends is one of the most hotly debated horror sequels in decades. That's the way I like to look at it anyways, and I probably think about these movies far more than I actually should. Back here in the real world, though, the point of view shot that we start the movie off with through our killer's eyes was something I was new to, being as young as I was, but it was brilliant because you didn't know who was lurking about. You know, it just felt like somebody who was looking into a house that he certainly shouldn't have been looking into and definitely shouldn't have been walking into. Now, a guy winds up betting a girl. Lightning quick efficiency, I might add. Didn't do this guy any favors. Then this person lurking about grabs a butcher knife, slides upstairs after the guy leaves, stops to grab a clown mask off of the floor, and then at this point we're looking through the eyes of this mask as he approaches a woman sitting in a bedroom naked, brushing her hair. Then he goes on to stab her repeatedly with the knife. Now she knows him because we hear her call him Michael, which the plot thickens. That doesn't stop him from going Super Saiyan on her with this blade. I mean, he goes to town on her, then once she's dead on the ground, scampers downstairs, and imagine our surprise when a pair of parents roll up, say his name, pull off his mask, and we find out that our stalker, our killer of his older sister, is a fresh-faced little boy that we would come to know for decades as the Shape. We, in this movie, are off and running, baby. A quick anecdote, I'll never forget where we go next because I remember I was about 7 years old when I saw this movie in 1987, and Donald Pleasance as Dr. Sam Loomis is having a conversation with Nurse Marion as they're about to go oversee a transfer of the now 21-year-old killer Michael Myers. Memorable to me, stood out to me because Sam Loomis looked like an uncle of mine that I did not fucking care for. So right away, hated Loomis. Eventually he wins me over, and he's very effective in explaining to Marion that he wants to make sure Michael never gets out. Going as far as referring to him as an it, desiring to dope him up with a heavy tranquilizer before he even goes in front of the judge. Now Marion is appalled at the doctor's indifference to this patient up until the point they see a whole mess of these people out and about in the rain, walking around in the yard. Loomis is alarmed by this, goes to check the front gate. We see Michael scale the back of this station wagon, attacks the nurse. She hops out. He races off with the car into the night. Outstanding scene because Loomis runs back, checks on her to his credit, and then he says over and over again, "It's gone from here. The evil is gone," as he cradles this startled nurse in the pouring rain. What a way to sell the killer of this film. What a way to sell the bad guy, the villain that you're going to spend the rest of the movie fearing. This moves us into Haddonfield, Illinois, which is where the original killing of Judith Myers took place, and the most logical place, according to Loomis, for Michael to be headed next. And this is also where Jamie Lee Curtis enters our lives in the beginning of this 1978 time jump. And thank you. Thank you to John Carpenter. Thank you to Horror Gods. Thank you for that introduction, because Our Forever Fox is the archetype for final girls. We didn't know that initially. We meet her. She's playing Laurie Strode. She's on assignment from her father to drop a key off at a property that he's trying to sell, the old Myers house. It's weird how they can't sell that house. No one wanted to live there since. I can't imagine why, but we meet little Tommy Doyle shortly thereafter, racing up to keep pace with his babysitter and warning her of the boogeyman house. Now, little do they know, as Laurie drops the key off under the front mat, as instructed by her dad, Michael is on the other side of this door, and this moment is where the fixation with Laurie begins. It's hard to watch this movie and separate the sibling angle between these two that most of the franchise wrapped itself around. Here in 1978, that idea doesn't even exist. And when you start to analyze it, it does beg a few questions. First off, how does Michael know this girl that just wandered over to his house is his sister in the first place? I mean, did she have a certain scent? Is he clairvoyant? I don't understand how he put that together. I mean, was this ever explained to us? And I didn't pay close enough attention because I was leering at Jamie Lee Curtis. If he did know who his sister was in some kind of way, what exactly was his plan had she not sauntered up to his front door that fateful Halloween? I mean, there's just a lot of holes in the sibling idea that they wind up implementing in the next movie. All of those inquiries, of course, to just land at the simple feeling that this is all so much better. The story, the character, all of it is just peak when we don't know. When we don't know. I don't care why he snapped. I'm just fascinated that he snapped. The inner workings of why he fixates on Laurie so early in the film doesn't really matter to me, but what comes after? That deliberate and that relentless stalking of this fresh-faced, carefree young woman, it's tense, it's believable enough to make you check over your shoulder for a stark white mask. Michael Myers is a force of nature in this movie. He wants what he wants, and he won't stop until he has it. He will go through anybody and everybody until he gets what he's looking for. Michael wastes no time at all. Once he sees Laurie Strode on his doorstep, he starts trailing her. He starts trailing Tommy Doyle. Now, in addition to meeting up with her friends Annie Brackett, played by Nancy Loomis, and then Linda, played by PJ Soles, Laurie would continue to see this masked figure throughout her day. Now, Halloween or not, I have to say that if this were me as a grown man and this dude kept showing up and staring right at me, I might have said something to someone about it. Or at the very least, I would approach this guy with a couple of questions. But it was the late 70s, and it was a bit more of a trusting time. And when you look like Jamie Lee, you're bound to have a few admirers here and there. Every scene in this movie is meaningful, too. I mean, when Laurie and Annie are just rolling around, smoking pot, listening to Blue Oyster Cult, we see that station wagon that Michael Grand Theft Auto pull out right behind them. Absolutely awesome. Then they run into Annie's father, played by Charles Cyphers, Sheriff Brackett. He's the Haddonfield sheriff. He's tending to a robbery of a hardware store where it says the thief only took a Halloween mask, rope, and a couple of knives. Wonder who that could have been. And then Loomis winds up showing up shortly thereafter to speak with the sheriff, and then completely misses the stolen station wagon with the escaped patient behind the wheel no more than 20 feet away from him. I mean, the whole thing could have been averted if the good doctor just had his head on the swivel a little bit. Just look around. Look around, Loomis. Come on now. Laurie, being the Girl Scout of the trio, she even calls herself that in the movie. She winds up watching both Tommy Doyle, who she's originally supposed to be sitting for anyways, as well as Lindsay Wallace, who Annie's supposed to be caring for that night until her hormones start calling. Now, as she goes to pick up Paul, there is a great scene where she goes out to her car, door's locked. So she's got to go back into the house and get some keys. So she's singing about Paul. She goes and gets her keys. She comes back out to the car, tries the handle, it's open. She doesn't think anything about it. And then she sits in the car, and then she does a double take before looking at the windshield, and it is all fogged over from the inside from heavy breathing. Michael, of course, attacks. Michael's, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but the kills in this are very minimalized as far as typical horror kills, but they're so effective. And this is one of them, because for a while he's just choking her and he's watching her as he's choking her, and then he slits her throat with a knife. It's just it plays off of Michael being curious about what he's doing so well. With Tommy and Lindsay sound asleep upstairs, Laurie decides she's going to venture across the street because she's worried about her friends. And in doing so, the two iconic horror figures centered around this film meet for the very first time in this October classic. I'm not sure we need to list all the different things this movie kills, but we can damn sure give it a go. Let's start with the cast. And introducing Jamie Lee Curtis to the world is one hell of a thing to be able to brag about. As Laurie Strode, whether we realized it at the time or not, we had the honor of watching maybe the greatest final girl of all time. Make some boneheaded choices, sure. I mean, there were some questionable moves there, Laurie, but ultimately she outlasts the shape. And yes, she got some timely help towards the end of this film, but you cannot tell me that anybody would have fit that role in this film better than Jamie Lee did. The fact that nearly every final girl for the remainder of horror history would take cues from this archetype created by her says everything that you need to know. And it runs in the family. I mean, her mother, Janet Leigh, horror royalty for her iconic shower death in Psycho. Legendary stuff from start to finish with this young lady. You know, I simply cannot say enough good things about her. And for the better part of this countdown thus far, I've gone on and on and on about Donald Pleasance as Dr. Sam Loomis, and I'll try to make this love fest for this movie as brief as I can. But the scene in the station wagon with Marion at the very beginning of the film, he's talking about what Michael Myers is. It may be the ultimate tone setter for a movie. I mean, we saw exactly what the kid was capable of at 6 years old. And, you know, then we move forward 15 years and Michael still hasn't spoken. And his own doctor is adamant that he never see freedom again for fear of what he is and what he may do. Sells this guy as pure evil. I mean, it just makes you believe it. Mere moments before he scales the car and attacks the nurse. Then the chase of Loomis after Michael while Michael is after Laurie. I mean, it's a chef's kiss. Rest in peace, Donald Pleasance. He's one of my favorite of all time. I mean, he's fantastic. From the first frame where we meet Michael Myers, that little dude is up to no good. I mean, he's stalking his own sister into her own bedroom before taking a knife to her. Ultimate act of evil. And that's just our first impression of the guy. For me, again, this is just my opinion. Take it as you will. This is my opinion. The Shape is the scariest villain in horror history. In the silver screen, anybody that's graced it, I don't think anybody compares to Michael Myers, the boogeyman. Call him whatever you want, just call him the greatest of all time. I'm sorry, I know it's a big pool to pick from, but this is a killer we got before the slasher style of horror was really even a thing. So the body count was low. The guy's ability to move in the shadows, you know, and just be the last place you would expect him to show up was just so fucking scary. And I remember the scene where he's outside looking in on Annie and the dog finds him. Now, there was a dog that lived next door to me when I was a kid, and that little shit would tear up anybody that he did not recognize from the neighborhood. And most of the people that lived in the neighborhood, he'd tear them up too. Made me scared of dogs. It made me think when a dog was around, people were going to be safe, or at the very least, the people that the dog cared about were going to be safe. So watching this movie, I'm thinking this dog's about to tear his ass up. And then he kills the dog. Now I'm thinking this is the baddest dude alive. And that heavy breathing of his, for me, it was something that it added so much to that character because he doesn't really show a whole lot of human features throughout this movie. But that heavy breathing, I don't know if it's anticipation or it's just visceral brutality he's about to unload on somebody. I don't know what it is, but I know when you hear it, like when Bob is about to go back to Linda and you hear that breathing and he pops out of that pantry, very, very cool stuff. We got a lot of different looks as well as a couple of different takes and motivations for this killer throughout 13 movies, but never, in my opinion, anything as good as our very first look at Michael Audrey Myers. And how about his story, or this story as a whole? I mean, it's as simple as can be, but it just works so well. You know, a maniac flees a hospital and heads home. By the way, home is this picture-perfect piece of Midwest Americana known as Haddonfield, Illinois. It's an easy tale to understand. And when you couple that with all of this occurring around Halloween, now we have a flagship piece of cinema to tie to a yearly holiday. Every single year, you can sit down, revisit it, get scared all over again. The uneasiness of this emotionless man. I mean, not only working towards this young woman, obsessing over this young woman, but going after her friends nearby as well. It just keeps you on edge the entire runtime. The curiosity he has at his own handiwork of his kills, pinning Bob to that wall with a butcher knife and then tilting his head to one side in admiration. It just sets him apart from any killer that we had seen before and anyone that we've gotten since, in my opinion. The fact that this happens basically in any town USA makes it feel possible. For a kid growing up in a very similar place like I did, it just kept you up at night. And with the imagination that I had in my little Midwest hometown that I lived in, I conjured these different stories. Now, never wrote any of them down, but they were something that I told myself. And then later I told my little brother and scared the piss out of him when we were young. So, great time. Halloween inspires everything. And how great were those kills? I mean, the simplicity of them, I think, really made them stand out above everything else. Also, the way they made you fear every dark corner of every house that Michael may have been in. Like when he materializes from the shadows, that's the shape. Now, this wasn't like many other horror films because there was only a handful of deaths. I think there was 4 or 5, and there was no gore involved. Add in Michael's heavy breathing and the way he toyed with Annie and then picking up that phone after Linda. It was just something that I would have been happy with if they would have stuck with that moving forward in the franchise. We got what we got, and it's gone on to do great things in some instances, and it's fallen on its face in others. But the way they make this about this entity and these small group of people that you get to know for a little bit before they, of course, ultimately take them off the board, it sticks with you. It's effective, and you remember it. I mean, here we are 45 plus years later, and we're still talking about it with nothing but love and respect.
Nothing. Not a damn thing.
Yeah, nothing. Nothing killed this movie. It's perfect. It's a 10 out of 10 certified classic. I still watch this movie and I can't be distracted by anything for that entire runtime. Not my phone, not my kids. I mean, maybe if the wife shows up in a Halloween outfit, maybe I'll take a glance. But short of that, I'm locked in on John Carpenter's Halloween every single time. Along with 12 sequels, The Boogeyman's Pursuit of the Girl That Got Away. It just gave us so much horror history. And as far as movies in general, it's on the Mount Rushmore, the silver screen for me. Thus, we conclude our Halloween countdown on this final day of October and my very favorite of the year. I appreciate you guys spending some time listening to me go on about a franchise I love, featuring characters that I adore in a season that just simply doesn't last long enough. This is Aging Gracefully. I am Matthew Essex. I will see you beautiful people on the other side, and probably in November.